Agitorum nostrum in nomine Domini. Pope St. Pius X on the Sion. We are looking at Bishop Williamson's chart, and we left off on paragraph 10. We're looking at the errors of the Sionists in doctrine. 9, they place sovereignty in the people and wish to abolish the social classes, and they dream of rebuilding society on a new basis, defying the laws of human nature. So you can't ignore human nature. You always have to respect what God has built in. The Bishop Williamson used to say, if you drive human nature out the front door, it'll come back through the back door. So, there's tons of examples of that. All right, conclusion, number 11, paragraph 11, Michael.
No, the only basis upon which society can be built is that taught by the Catholic Church.
That's right. And people scream when they hear this, but that's the way it is. Because the Catholic Church understands human nature and has 2,000 years of dealing with human nature. So, all right, Sion, the doctrine, expounded and refuted. Expounded, the negative, positive, and summary. Negative, expounded doctrine, emancipation, paragraph 13, Michael.
They teach that man's dignity requires his autonomy. Autonomy requires his liberation.
Yeah, so to be dignified, he has to be obedient to nobody and free from every tie. Which is just, it's really stupid. Because what makes a father of a family, for example, he's bound by his vow of marriage, right? Is he a real man if he breaks his vow, divorces her, and runs off with other women? No, he's less than a man. He's a traitor to his wife, which is a question of justice and vow. He's a traitor to God, to whom he promised his vows. And he's running straight to hell, the poor guy. So no, they teach that man's dignity requires his autonomy, no vows, no strings attached, no obligations, no responsibilities, no duties, and requires his liberation. But that's false. A true good man stays faithful to his vows. Are they burdensome at times? Yes. Are they easy? Yes. Not always. But he has the grace to help fulfill his duties of state. Democratism. 14. Anthony?
Therefore, as many people as possible must take part in the direction of affairs.
Yeah, everybody has to have a say. That's why you have all these boards for every decision in businesses. Boards for this, boards to make a decision on that. The chief, the leader, the one in charge can't just make a decision. He has to consult with all these boards. And that's this way overboard with democratism. Positive, that's the negative. Positive democratism in politics, 15, Anthony.
Politically, each citizen is to be a king, since authority belongs to the people.
Right, so everyone's a king. And what's an example of this? Just give a simple example of this in the modern world. In the sports, right? In the sports.
Oh, everyone wins.
Everyone gets a gold medal. That's just stupid. It's not truthful. When we were growing up, the MVP went to the best player. The best player on the team. He got the MVP, or maybe two. And that was something special. And they really were the best players. And they deserved it. And some got a medal for, I forget all the medals that were handed out in trophies. but it acknowledges athletic ability, and in the academic level, not everybody is an A student. But those who are A students, they get a special reward. And that used to be acknowledged in schools. In in the big gatherings of the school, so-and-so gets a reward for academic excellence. So today, everybody is valedictorian. Everybody is a winner. Everybody gets a gold medal. It's just stupid. It's just not truthful. And everybody knows that's a lie. And then in economics, 16, Anthony?
Economically, each worker is to be a manager by means of non-socialist guilds.
Each worker is to be a worker, an employee, or a manager by means of non-socialist guilds. So how can everybody be a manager? That's a recipe for chaos, right? Positive in civics, 17, Gabriel.
Civically, each citizen is to promote the good of the city, of the nation, of mankind.
In morals, 18.
This superior moral consciousness of the people is the basis of all democratic plans.
Moral consciousness of the people, whatever that means. Summary, a dream, 19.
However, this supposed people's education and democracy is a dream.
This supposed people's education in democracy is a dream. Everybody's a scholar. Everybody's a gold trophy winner. Everybody is a valedictorian. It's just a dream. It's not reality. Right? Not everybody on the baseball team is a pitcher. Not everybody can pitch. Not everybody's a catcher. Not everybody is... one of the key positions in baseball is first base, right? He's a key player. He's got to catch. He's got to throw. He's got to be quick. He's got to have he has to have a sharp mind to hold that position. But not everybody can do it. Is that reality?
Yes.
Yes. Is it a dream to say everybody can pitch? Everybody can be a first base? Everybody can be a valedictorian?
Yes.
That is a dream. It's not true. And the modern world is built a lot in these lies, these dreamy lies. Disneyland, as Bishop Williamson used to often call it. Disney World. The Sion doctrine refuted, in general, in particular. In general, thesis 20, Michael.
For indeed, the Sion rests on false notions, contrary to Catholic truth.
Repeat.
For indeed, the Sion rests on false notions, contrary to Catholic truth.
Therefore, not built on rock, but built on
Sand.
on the question of authority, in particular, 21, Michael.
In truth, authority in society neither comes from nor resides in the people.
Okay, this is the facts, heretics. This is the facts, Sionists, in your dream world. Authority neither comes from nor resides in the people. Sorry about your dreams, but it doesn't come from the people. It comes from
God.
On the question of liberty, 22.
Nor is obedience either diminishing or degrading or degenerate.
Right, obedience is the opposite. It is enlarging. One who lives obediently becomes enlarged in their heart, in their goals. Those who live in obedience are noble. They're made more noble. Look how many canonized saints were obedient wives to their often unpleasant husbands. Right? Or in the religious life, how many saints are canonized who had pretty rough superiors to obey? One time, Padre Pio, one of the brothers, kicked him down the steps and laughed. And he went tumbling down the steps, and he had the wounds of Christ. And the superior laughed and said, serves him right. Because they thought he was a fraud. They thought he was a liar and a joker and, pretending to have these wounds. So he was persecuted. for a time in his own monastery. So the superior, but did Padre Pio, he is a saint, no doubt, but you can't trust always these Novice Ordo canonizations. But he's certainly a saint, there's no doubt about it. But because Pope Francis, anyway, Padre Pio, when did he say, I'm out of here. I'm not going to obey anymore. I'm out of this monastery. This place is treating me badly. Did he march out of there, demanding his rights?
No.
Demanding his rats?
Rats.
Did he?
No.
No. He continued to obey his superior, respect his superior, because he saw Christ in him. And then later, with time, they realized he wasn't a liar. And they changed. They had a great respect for him. So many saints suffered. Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, she suffered a lot from her superior. And the fellow nuns just basically tortured her. And also Saint Bernadette, she wasn't treated, and Saint Teresa of Lisieux, the superior didn't always treat them well. But who became the saint? The superior or the one who obeyed?
The one who obeyed.
Yes. So this has to be really without going overboard on obedience, because in our situation, you can sin by obedience. If I say we're going to be obedient now to the Pope, 100% obedient, we have to be saints and accept the new Mass and accept Vatican II. Is that a true obedience?
No.
No, that'd be a disobedience to God and to Jesus Christ and the Catholic Church. A huge disobedience. So we have to have the right understanding. But when you have the right faith, obedience is praiseworthy. And it's truly makes saints. So instead, obedience is not diminishing, it's not degrading, it is not degenerate. In particular, on the question of equality, 23, Michael.
Nor is all inequality unjust. So democracy is not the only form of government.
True. And what are the other forms of government that can be just as good or better?
Monarchy and aristocracy.
Exactly. So democracy, okay, fine, but it has to be understood in the Catholic way. Fraternity, Anthony?
As for fraternity, without Christ and Christian charity, it will destroy civilization.
Yeah, so this kind of fraternity of the Freemasons is just do-goodism, humanitarianism, philanthropy. Philos means love, anthropos means man, philanthropy means
Love of man.
yeah. And it's not going to last. Fraternity without Christ and the true Catholic charity is not going to last. It's just hot air. And then dignity, understood as Catholic. Go on.
In sum, man's dignity does not consist in his prideful independence.
Right, but rather in his humble
Obedience.
dependence, and obedience on God and on our lawful superiors, etc. So the Zionists, it sounds appealing to young people. Be free, break yourself free. Don't chain yourself to vows and responsibilities and obedience. It sounds all, it sounds all like candy to human pride, but it's deadly, right? Sion in action, within the Sion and within the church. Within the Sion, deficiencies and conclusion. Deficiencies leveling, indiscipline, revolution. Deficiencies within the Sion, leveling. 27, Anthony?
Putting these errors into practice, the Sion has no internal hierarchy.
Right, so everybody's on the board. Everybody's equal. Indiscipline, 28.
Hence to their indiscipline, indocility and disobedience towards the church.
Yeah, because they lack this true Catholic spirit, they become indocile. They don't obey the church. They're not submissive to the Catholic Church in her tradition. And this is under a good Pope, Pius X. And you know what the modernists were saying about Pius X? He's a farm boy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Let's just wait for the next Pope. Like we wait, hopefully, for the next good Pope, they were waiting, hopefully, for the next bad Pope. The modernists and the Sionists. They mocked him for being a farm boy. Conclusion, Revolution 29.
The Sion, in fact, spells revolution against church and God.
That's right. So the Sion was probably infiltrated by the Freemasons. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Yes.
Because these are all Masonic ideas, right? So someone in there, maybe Marc Chagnier himself, maybe he was a Mason. It's very possible. And I think Joseph Smith of the Mormons, I think. A lot of the Mormon activities and structure is very Freemasonic. So I think he was a Mason himself. All right, the Sion action within the church, deficiencies and conclusion, deficiencies in general, 30, Gabriel.
For despite its claims, Zionist action is not acceptable to the church.
Democratism, 31.
Firstly, the Sion ties the church to democracy, nay, tie a false democratism.
2, a false democratism. So the church has to be democratic. Society has to be, the government has to be democratic. Is that true?
No.
No. No, not at all. But for the Sion, it has to be. Neutralism, 32.
That in public the Zionist is, as such, neutral in matters of religion.
Okay, there is the flashing red light. This is Masonic. They always push indifference on matters of religion, which leads to religious indifference. Ecumenism, 33.
Indeed, the greater Sion opened the Sion wide to embrace all creeds.
Yes, all creeds, all belief, hence ecumenism. Which, and is this not Vatican II? Is not all this Vatican II in the seed? It's just going to be bud and explode in the council. Universalism, 34.
And then opened wider still to become a fraternity of any idealism.
That's right. Anything goes. Conclusion, indifferentism, 36.
So the Zionists are not indifferent to beliefs. They believe in indifferentism.
That's well said. Repeat.
So the Zionists are not indifferent to beliefs. They believe in indifferentism.
Promiscuous, 37, Anthony.
Such mixing with all kinds of beliefs and unbelief is
Perilous.
perilous for young Catholics.
Yeah. What's a synonym for perilous? Anyone?
Dangerous.
Dangerous for young Catholics. Yeah, mixing beliefs. It's dangerous. So as you think, so you act, right? As the doctrine is, so are the morals, right? So if you start mixing beliefs, it leads to mixing morals. So false belief leads logically to sodomite sins. Mixing the genders, transgenderism and all that. It leads logically to it. Right? Do you follow?
Yes.
Hence the promiscuous actions of the Sion. Socialist actions, 38, Anthony?
Moreover, the utopian civicism, disparaging the Christian city, leads to socialism, and worse still, to a universal religion of humanitarianism.
Yes. Yes. So it's a false socialism and humanitarianism without Christ the King. One worldist, 40.
Thus the Sion has fallen prey to the universal apostasy of the one worlders.
Yeah, the universal apostasy of the one-worlders. So it's Pius X who speaks of this. They want a one-world religion, one-world government, one-world financial system. Revolutionary, 41.
Seduced by Christ's well-known enemies into making the revolution their gospel,
Yeah. Antichrist, 42.
which falsify true charity and wholly disfigures the true Jesus.
Yes. So, the new Mass is democratic, and it disfigures who Jesus truly is. And the new Mass flows from these ideas. Catholic counteraction, instructions, prayer, to the bishops, to the Sionists. To the bishops, first to the lay folk, 43 at Michael.
Bishops, be gentle, but firstly, teach everyone.
But firmly.
But firmly teach everyone their Christian social duties.
So what is the duty of the bishops?
To teach.
Teach. Always to teach, to teach, to teach. If they don't teach, they're not doing their duty. If a bishop doesn't teach, is he doing his duty?
No.
But he might be nice, he might be traditional, he might mean well. If he's not teaching, he's not doing his duty. And Bishop Williamson used to teach very well. He wrote a letter every month out of the seminary. And 99% of them were just excellent letters. Excellent teaching. Condemning Vatican II. He spoke a lot about the errors of religious liberty and ecumenism. Tradecumenism as well. He condemned the new Mass ferociously. He was great. He did once in a while promote the Valtorta, which is a private revelation, which is not approved by the Church, and Archbishop Lefebvre didn't like it. And it was condemned on the Index in the 1940s under a good pope. But aside from that, he wrote some great, powerful letters. And he was teaching as a bishop. So did Archbishop Lefebvre. He put out a letter every month. But these traditional bishops, you never hear from them. Hardly. I wish they did. It would be so wonderful. But anyway. So if a bishop doesn't teach, he's not doing his duty. Bishops, be gentle, but firmly teach everyone their Christian social duties. That means teach mothers how to be good mothers. Teach fathers how to be good fathers. Teach children how to be virtuous and obedient and loving to their parents and generous. Teach these things. Teach the priests to be good priests, nuns to be good nuns, leaders to be good leaders. You see the duty of the bishop, and if they speak, people stay more online. But if they're not teaching people, the sheep just wander, right? And they wander into horrible, dangerous pastures and into pack of wolves and off the cliff. To priests, 44.
Also, appoint down-to-earth priests to master, attain social...
Christian.
Appoint down-to-earth priests to master Christian social doctrine for today.
Follow to Sionists, the followers, 45.
Let the young Sionists cooperate and submit to you.
And leaders, 46.
Let the Sionist leaders hand the entire Sion over to you.
Yeah, in other words, submit to the bishops. And of course, these are Catholic and good bishops. So, prayer, 47.
May all Sionists understand and submit. May you look after them.
48, 49.
With pontifical blessing given at Rome, August 1910.
Yeah. So notice he's telling the bishops, don't go in with a sledgehammer, because these are souls. So try to go gently, but lead them to a good understanding of where they're wrong and where their good enthusiasm can be directed. Right? So very wise. Very wise. So what do you think is outstanding in this encyclical?
It kind of...
Michael?
it shows that a lot of the errors we have today, that we deal with today, we don't need to wait for a good pope to come and condemn them. They've already been condemned.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. Because a lot of people say, well, we have to wait for the Pope to condemn the new Mass. Well, sorry, the new Mass has already been condemned. Where?
Quo primum.
Quo primum, or else?
Council of Trent.
Council of Trent. That's why, Sean Johnson, he has a lot of good articles. I can't take that away. And he wrote a great book called As We Are, showing the contradictions, the compromises, and changes in the new SSPX. He did a very good job. But he's really way overboard on he's trying to defend the new Mass, that it gives grace, quoting the Council of Trent. Which is a contradiction, because the Council of Trent condemns the new Mass. Right? And he's trying to bend over backwards to justify that. When Archbishop Lefebvre, he tries to say Archbishop Lefebvre didn't mean to say what he said. But he did say, many times, the new Mass doesn't give grace. It's sterile. And I think he's forgetting St. Thomas Aquinas. And I gave you that quote. I forget where. I think it was in Sacred Liturgy. That if one, either by profession or right, a member of the Catholic Church, you don't get the grace of the Catholic Church. Because you're outside the mystical body, says St. Pius X. If you're not one with the church, so that's why St. Thomas Aquinas, the conclusion is the schismatic, orthodox, valid Mass is valid, but it doesn't give grace. Because they're not part of the church that flows with the grace. So we could say with the new rite, it stands objectively condemned. It's not a rite of the Catholic Church. It's an illegitimate rite, a bastard rite, non-Catholic. So how can it give grace, even if it is valid? His argument is, if it's valid, it automatically gives grace because Christ is there. But, the old lady in the pew who doesn't know better, and she's praying at the new Mass. She doesn't understand why they're facing the people. She likes the older ways. She doesn't know what's going on. Will she receive grace from God? Yes. When she prays, God will give her grace. But is she going to get it through the new Mass? No. So, anyway, yes.
So I have a question, Father. So all the rites of the schismatic Orthodox, so they stole all the rites of the church, correct?
They stole the sacraments, yes.
So in their rites, if they were, God willing, when they come back to the church, they will keep their rites.
Yes.
So then, their rights themselves are good. The right that they have.
Well, with a lot of the Orthodox, they will, when they convert, like when Russia converts, they're going to have to put into their creed, filioque. They will have to put that in, because that's a dogma, that the Holy Ghost proceeds from the Father and the Son. Filioque means and the Son. So they'll have to do some adaptions. They'll have to put the name of the reigning Pope also, which they don't.
I see.
But other than that, the ancient rites are ancient and beautiful.
So then if St. Thomas Aquinas says that because of the fact that they broke away from the church, you can't receive graces from those sacraments, I think it's just a fortiori. I think even more so, you have a rite, the new Mass, that is intrinsically evil, that offends God, the rite itself.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it that a rite that offends God, it's built in to offend God?
Yeah.
Then how is it that can give grace while the schismatics can't?
Yeah, I know. Well, my point is, I don't have all the theological answers and distinctions, but the Archbishop said it many times. And he was the best theologian, so he's right. There is truth to what he says. And Sean Johnson really battles this whole question. He put out a booklet on it, and he stands by it. So, but he's quoting Council of Trent to defend his position when the Council of Trent condemns the new Mass. So,
But it's probably a position that nobody would have argued if it wasn't for Bishop Williamson saying it.
Exactly. That's the only reason. And his whole argument rests on if the new Mass is valid. And if those priests are validly ordained, which also have been tampered with. So you have to admit objectively, they are objectively, questionably valid. And do the priests, one, are they even truly ordained? Two, do they even have the right intention? Because all the novice ordos are all trained to believe the new Mass is the assembly theology.
But valid doesn't even mean that
It
it
doesn't,
gives grace.
yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
even what valid means. Look at a black mass. They're
Right.
valid. You get a priest to consecrate the host. That's valid. You can even receive sacraments that are valid, but to your condemnation if you receive a valid sacrament in the state of mortal sin.
Right.
So just because it was valid, it didn't give you grace.
That's right.
We could just look back at the Greek, with that argument, we could just look back at the Greek schismatics. We know their sacraments are valid. There's
Yes.
no doubt to the fact that they are valid.
Yeah.
But still, you cannot receive grace from them because of the obstacle that they themselves put.
Not even that you can't receive
Yeah.
grace, it would be a moral sin to partake.
Yeah, you
That's
don't
right.
receive grace, and then also you.
So how could I put myself in the state of moral sin, but then I'm also receiving grace just because it's valid?
Well, that's what his argument is. But I don't think he's aware of what St. Thomas Aquinas teaches. You have to be a member of the mystical body. Without me, you can do nothing, Christ said. I am the vine, you are the branches. The branch that does not abide in me doesn't have life. So how can a rite of Mass, separated from the church, which the new Mass is, give grace, even if it is valid? So, again, I don't pretend to be the final say on this whole question, but I'm just quoting Archbishop Lefebvre, St. Thomas Aquinas, and I side with them over Sean Johnson. And Bishop Williamson's pushing of the new Mass gives grace. The result of Bishop Williamson pushing these new novelties was just more confusion. That's all the result was. More confusion and a softening towards the new Mass. People condemn it less. They don't see it as evil as it really is. And if there's grace at the new Mass, well, why am I driving 3 hours to go to some Trinity Mass when I got grace 20 minutes at the local parish? And the priest says a relatively respectful novice ordo Mass, so I can get grace there. And it's valid, so...
That's how a lot of the people go to Austin parishes think too, is that, well, I want the Latin Mass, but if I can't get the Latin Mass, I need to go to Mass, and it's a Mass, and it gives graces, so it's just like, it's second best.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, as one SSPX priest said, the new Mass is a trickle of grace. The Tridentine Mass is a flood of grace, but they both give grace.
But this is all under the presupposition that it is even valid. Like, that shouldn't even be the argument. The argument should be that they're doubtful.
Exactly.
So if you're going to say, oh, well, they're valid, that's not the argument. The argument is if they're valid, which means they're doubtful, which means you can't go.
Yes, that's right. And that's right. That's another moral theology principle is you must choose the tutio pars. When it comes to the sacraments, you must choose the tutio pars, which means the safer, more certain course. If there's a doubt regarding the sacrament, you have to stay away. And there's a doubt regarding the novice ordo ordinations, novice ordo confirmations, novice ordo episcopal consecrations. You have to stay away. That's the mind of the church, tutio pars, which Sean Johnson also seems to forget. So I don't expect him to make some apology and that he's going to correct his position. I doubt it. But I hope he just drops a stupid question because it's just useless. What's he going to prove? All right, the new Mass gives grace. I proved it. What, does that mean you're going to go to it? Sean Johnson, take your family to it. Watch your kids lose the faith. Just watch. Their grandchildren won't have the faith. So, it's a stupid, futile, sterile argument. But he is a talented man, so let him use his talents to focus on what really matters. Because he does write good articles. He did write a great book. So he does have a talent there. So, but what a foolish waste of time to argue this. It really is. It has nothing to do with our battle. It's like Father Pfeiffer going off to the Tukline. You know, why does he have to do this? Causes confusion, and he chooses the worst of the bishops of all the Tukline, the worst of all the lines of all the Tuklines, and nobody can trust those sacraments, nor that they're probably not even priests. Poor boys, and I know these boys. They were good boys that had real vocations. And I told him, you're driving this seminary off the cliff. You have no right to do this. It's an injustice to these boys to put them under these phony bishops that we're not even sure are bishops at all. That's when he was playing with using Bishop Moran, which he did use Moran to conditionally ordain Father Poisson. So Father Poisson's been conditionally reordained. He's from St. Peter's, so Navasoro bishop. He's been conditionally reordained by so-called Bishop Ambrose, then by so-called Bishop Pfeiffer. So he still has to be conditionally reordained. The poor Father Poisson. I mean, he's got so many conditional ordinations, and they're all doubtful. I mean, it's just so unnecessary. Father Pfeiffer did not need to do this. But he did. And I warned him. And back in 2013 or 14, he was thinking of bringing in a Da Costa line bishop. Father Fama at the time, Bishop Fama, who was from the Da Costa line. Eduardo da Costa was excommunicated under Pius XII in Brazil. He wanted to bring women on the altar. He wanted to put it in the English. This was even long before the new Mass. He was very progressive. And the bishops from that line, we have to stay away. So Father Pfeiffer was thinking seriously to use this Bishop Fama. And he visited us in Kentucky. A very nice man, very humble man, but he did a bad move, got himself consecrated in the Da Costa line. So we were at breakfast once with Mr. and Mrs. Pfeiffer. She cooked breakfast for Father Pfeiffer and I think I forget who else was there. And Father Pfeiffer brought this up, and I just said, if you bring this Bishop Fama in, I'll be packing. I'll be out of here. And his mother yelled at him and said, Joey, stop having these crazy ideas. Don't bring in these wacky bishops. She was right. So he didn't. But we have to trust providence and not force providence. We didn't have a bishop. Bishop Williamson just spat on us, and I'm not saying everything was perfect. And anyway, I don't want to give you a history of that. That's not why we're here. But it's good to hear it because, these useless arguments of Sean Johnson and Bishop Williamson bringing up the new Mass, all this stuff, Father Pfeiffer, it just causes more confusion. It's not necessary. It's not part of the fight. You see that's my point. It's just foolish. It's just foolish. Anyway, this is why it's so good for us to study the papal encyclicals. So we get our minds straightened out. That we wash out all the toxins and weird ideas from us being raised in the modern world. We're all children of the revolution. So when we turn to our fathers, the popes, Papa, it's refreshing to get good teaching, good doctrine, and to think correctly. And to act correctly, because he's not saying go to the Sion now with a sledgehammer and excommunicate all of them. He's not saying that. So he's a good shepherd too. He says, correct their errors, but deal gently with them. Bring them back, show you're a father, and just point out their errors, point out my encyclical, cover their errors, and see if they're of goodwill, they're going to correct it. And then take their good enthusiasm of all the young people and steer it to a good direction. So this is wonderful, this encyclical of Pius X. You see him strong on doctrine, but gentle to the person, right? That's Catholic. Tough as nails when it comes to doctrine, gentle with people. Because people are people and they make mistakes, they make bad judgments. And very few of the modernists were actually excommunicated. Right? Not all of them were excommunicated. So next encyclical we're going to start will be on atheistic communism, Divini Redemptoris. Adjutorium nostrum in nomine Domini.